Hello friends, today we look at the main fines for violations of accounting regulations in Montenegro. So let's begin. Article 38 of the law on accounting tells us the following. A legal entity, that is your company, can be fined an amount ranging from 500 to 16,500 euros in cases where it fails to submit financial statements according to international accounting standards, does not provide the inspection authority with the annual report, which must be submitted in the first quarter of the year following the reporting year, does not keep commercial books using the double entry bookkeeping system, does not record all commercial transactions, or does not account for them in business books, the inventory of the company's assets or liabilities does not match the records in the commercial books, or the commercial books are not closed as of December 31 of the previous year. Financial statements, the general ledger and the journal are not kept for at least 10 years, or auxiliary books are not kept for at least 5 years. Primary documentation, on the basis of which all entries are made, is not kept for at least 5 years. Or important changes such as mergers, demergers, or liquidation of the company are not recorded in the business books. In addition to the aforementioned fine imposed on the legal entity, the responsible person in the company, that is the director, can also be fined up to 2,000 euros for these violations. But apart from these fines specified in the law on accounting services, there are also other fines outlined in various other laws. For example, for failing to submit a profit report, your company can be fined from 1 to 20,000 euros. Moreover, this year I received a truly massive, a large number of letters from the tax authorities stating that if a certain company does not submit, say, within three days, does not manage to submit the profit report, then they will accordingly fine it the specified amount, that is up to 20,000 euros. We're talking about abandoned companies. That is, there's a typical situation where a foreigner lives here for a while and then decides to leave, either to return to their home country or to move further west. Most people, of course, are sensible and close their companies before leaving. But there are people who just abandon their companies. Naturally, an accountant is not going to keep working for such a company for free forever. For a while, reports are submitted, then after 2 or 3 months, you start writing to the director. Where are you? Why aren't you showing up? Either they don't respond at all, or they reply with something like, I've left and don't know when I'll be back, probably never. So sooner or later, you realize that the company has been abandoned and you stop doing any work for it. But this year, for such companies, it's been happening on a massive scale. After another, letters were coming in saying you have 3 days to fix this or we'll fine you. At the same time, notice how gently the tax authorities are acting. First of all, they don't fine you right away, immediately, but give you a warning. Please correct this, otherwise we'll be forced to fine you. And they do this not at the moment when the violation actually occurred, but several months later. The report needs to be submitted by the end of the first quarter, but the letters only started arriving in June. So, I think this is very lenient. I informed all the directors of the abandoned companies about this fact. And as expected, in most cases, I didn't get any response from them. After that, I did the only thing left for me in this situation. I resigned my authority at the tax office and left these brave people to deal on their own with the huge fines that will be imposed on them in the future. They could have closed their companies very simply and cheaply, but they chose to abandon them. Let's wish them luck. It's their choice and their responsibility. I don't want to be involved in this. In addition to the abandoned companies, I received similar letters regarding several limited liability companies whose owners, after obtaining their residence permits, declared that they would handle their own accounting and started asking on Facebook who could urgently teach them how to do it. I had several such companies. Apparently, the training they got from Facebook turned out to be of little use. They don't even know that they need to file a profit and loss statement. To become an accountant, you need to study for 6 months in courses, then pass 9 exams, and only then do you get the certificate and are able to do accounting, including the accounting for your own company, independently. You can become an accountant just by getting some instructions from Facebook. Even if your company isn't operating, that doesn't mean you don't have to do anything for it at all. So, what other common fines are there, would you say? There's a fine for violating the law on fiscalization. If your company is conducting business, you can't just make up an invoice in Word and give it to your client. You have to issue invoices through a special program. It immediately sends the data to the tax authorities. So basically, the tax authorities know about every invoice you issue. This is called fiscalization. For violating this law, that is for issuing invoices incorrectly or not issuing them at all, you can be fined up to 40,000 euros. And there are quite a lot of such fines in Montenegro. They are published online. You can take a look, but I haven't seen any fines there for 40,000. Let's put it this way, there are quite a few for several thousand, like 6,000 euros. There are plenty of such fines. So people really do get fined for these kinds of violations. And next, for failure to pay wages to an employee, including the director of your own company, fines can reach up to 22,000 euros, 200,000 for the company and 2,000 for the responsible person, that is, the director. It's important to remember that salaries must be paid exclusively from the company's account to the employee's account. The fact that the only employee in your company is the director does not exempt you from the obligation to comply with this law. Everything is clearly stated in the labor law. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Article 105. You can find this law and read it yourself. And according to this law, salaries must be paid exclusively from the company's account to the employee's account. There are no other forms of salary payment in Montenegro. Some accountants do not pay salaries to company directors and tell stories about paying salaries in some other way, not to the employee's account. They just somehow reflect it in the accounting records. These are all fairy tales. They are told solely to reduce the amount of work. If you pay a salary through the account, you have to prepare documents for it. If, for example, you service 200 companies, that means 200 documents a month, 200 pieces of paper. Or, to put it another way, that's 2,400 documents a year. That's quite a large amount of work, but you could simply not do it. Just tell a story about paying salaries in some other way. As for the fact that you could be fined 22,000 euros for doing it differently, you might as well not mention that. In other words, some people operate this way. Next, there's another common fine for inactive companies. Not everyone submits reports to the pension fund because supposedly the company isn't operating. Most people are employed at a quarter-time rate. But to receive a pension in the future, you need to be officially employed full-time and work for 15 years. But people are employed at a quarter-time rate, so basically they're not entitled to a pension. And that's why some people prefer not to submit certain reports to the pension fund, which in my opinion is rather risky, because failing to submit a report to the pension fund can result in a fine of up to 2,500 euros, which frankly I don't think you need. That's all from me. Goodbye everyone.